Guys, so we are going to take a look here. This is going to be an example game using a prismatic. I keep stumbling over this every time I try and say it. It is a mouthful. Prismatic Pauper Singleton deck. These games can get a little long, so I did try and do this as a regular playthrough, but decided that it was much better to do this as a replay and do my best to kind of speed talk my way through it. So, opening hand looks pretty good. I'm going to assume Coiling Oracle as a land fetch. Definitely something that you want to have available in this, and we also have two options for card draw as well in the other Oracle, the Seagate Oracle, and our Wood Readers. Just kind of need to find us a blue mana source, and we are good to go. So pass along a couple turns here, lag it up a bit. Panoramas are great. Draw into a Spinning Darkness. I'm going to do my best to try and throw black cards to my graveyard in order to get that for its free cost. Things get better. I do hit the Oracle off the blue draw. Definitely the Coiling Oracle is what you want to go for first. Kind of in the early game, the first thing you want to hit is land fetch, and then after that, it is card draw, in that order, So, early game, land fetch, card draw, everything else. Mid to late game, card draw, land fetch, everything else. Maybe even put land fetch below everything else, depending, on the situation. Getting close to being able to hit my 6 cost on the Wood Readers. Definitely want to play that for the kicker. It's the only reason that I brought it into the deck. Opponent plays a Heuristic Study. Now this is a card that some people, do not play around, and will just let your opponent draw cards off it. I am one where I'm going to make sure that every opportunity I have to pay that extra card, or that extra mana, I am going to keep my opponent from drawing the extra card. So you see here when I play the Oracle, I am going to pay the 1 to stop it. 2 lands, I go for the Boilerworks because I am missing the red mana source, and we'll get that into play. So you'll see next turn I am at 6, and could play my Wood Readers, but decide not to in order to keep my opponent from drawing cards off the Heuristic Study. So my opponent plays the Yavimaya Dryad. I feel that he does not use this really to his advantage throughout the game, using it, when he has the mana available to sacrifice it and all. Did attack through there. I knew that he was not going to block, because usually the ideal thing is to block with it when you have mana available to sacrifice it with the card draw. Now he draws into Wayfinder, so he's going to keep fetching out. I do have a Sanctifier, and I want to try and find, first opportunity I have available to me, I want to find a white mana source so that I can play that kicked Sanctifier and get rid of the Heuristic Study. Going to kick the Wood Readers here finally when I have 7 mana, so I can play it around the study. You see, I do my best in this early game and even later to keep my hand as close to 7 as possible. It's very important to have land advantage in this format, and I cannot stress that enough. Whether it's prismatic or otherwise, it's definitely important. I'm going to play the Bog just so I have the black mana source and I can start pitching things like Consult the Necrosages and Blood Tithe to my grave in hopes of getting Spitting Darkness for free. He's going to use Mysteries. Like I said, card draw and card advantage is very important. I am going to use the Consult the Necrosages here to force my opponent to discard 2. Hopefully I can get rid of something that he may have wanted to hold on for a later part in the game. We do get rid of, you see here, Journey to Nowhere and Tin Street Hooligan, 2 very, very good cards. A smart move here, I could have attacked and tried to ninja in this ninja. But he does have the mana available for Capsule, so he would have been able to block 2 of those and then kill one of them in order to stop the ninja from coming in. So it's definitely did not quite work out to my advantage. It's going to be kind of hard sometimes to find an opportunity to use ninjutsu in the mid to late game. You're going to have to do it through flyers and evasion. So my opponent is playing Land Destruction. I find it very, very tedious. People insist on playing a lot of Land Destruction in Prismatic, and I don't personally care for it, but I'm going to play the Blood Tithe, Blood Tithe. He loses life, I go up life, and again, trying to fill up my count. I now have 2 cards in the graveyard for Spinning Darkness. Plays the Owl, Trinket Mage, and unfortunately, to my dismay, he gets the Relic. which means that I am probably not going to be able to cast this Spinning Darkness for its exile, or its its alternative cost, I guess is the word we would use, because the great thing about the Relic of Progentis is the fact that it has the exile all cards ability, does not require it to tap. So going to tap out here, can pay 6 to play Brilliant Plan. And now I get to a point where I'm going to play the first card that lets my opponent draw. I draw into lands here, and I have not made a drop yet, but I am going to, instead of playing a land first, I am going to play the Expedition first, so that I can drop the Terramorphic Expanse and use that ability to get 2 counters, so that I can sacrifice the Expedition on my following turn. This doesn't allow my opponent to draw a card, but I'm feeling okay with that, because of the fact that it's going to allow me to get this Expedition going so soon. I guess I can see both sides of that. Where we're not letting him get that going is also important. So these resounding cycling cards are really fantastic. This one, Resounding Scream, allows my opponent to get rid of 2 cards at random from my hand. Unfortunately for me, that did include my Core Sanctifiers. So it's going to have to wait a little longer for me to find some answer to Heuristic Study. He's going to continue to attack through the air with the Augury Owl. Definitely the best way to do damage in this. You end up with a lot of kind of creature stalls like this, and the best way to do damage to an opponent is through evasion. Casting Worldly Council. I see 3 lands and Faith's Fetters. I could use the Faith's Fetters to try and stop the Owl, but using that on a 1/1 creature is not really worth it. So I'm going to take the Ranger and just use it later on to help thin out my deck from lands. Do get to crack the Expedition and hit a 4C, which I am going to cast. And this is pretty great. I see a Raven's Crime I just threw on top, and the Orm's Thunder, which is going to be my answer to the Heuristic Study, and I'm going to put these 2 lands at the bottom. And I have the ability now with my untapped mana that I can play Raven's Crime to force my opponent to discard a card, and I can also do so with the Heuristic Study tax on it. Another thing this Raven's Crime is going to do is force my opponent to use the Relic of Progentis to remove the graveyards in order to keep me from continually removing his hand. You see right here I have 2 cards plus the Ranger, so I will be able to recast that Raven's Crime 3 times if he had not done so. So he's going to attack through after removing. Gets kind of the Ophi out and the Minister out. And I'm going to get rid of his Heuristic Study on this turn. Kind of an interesting thing. I make a couple misplays you'll see in a minute with the Vigilante. But I do play this Vigilante. And I have more than enough mana available to morph it and get rid of an artifact. But I keep forgetting to get rid of this Capsule. And that's when my opponent is at that point in time where he has nothing available to sacrifice it. So it would have been just a dead card to him. Would have put me at an advantage, but I definitely keep forgetting about it as this game continues. So he gets a bit of a nice recursion thing going on here. He transmutes his Drift of Phantasms in order to get Recover. Now he's going to be able to return the Drift of Phantasms to his hand and draw a card off Recover, and transmute it yet again in order to find something else worth playing. But he does have it even better because he does have an Anarchist, which is going to allow him to recover the Recover. And now he's going to be able to transmute that and recover it once again. So he's going to be able to use that Drift of Phantasms 3 times. So now we get a great draw here on Train of Thought. I'm going to replicate it twice in order to draw and refill my hand. Again, missing out on the opportunity to flip this Vigilante and kill off that Executioner's Capsule while my opponent is tapped. Definitely not a good thing. But we do have some options here. We got a lot of graveyard recursion here, but no creatures in the grave. So that is a little disheartening, but we're going to thin out some of the lands with the Ranger here. Gives me options later on, but you'll see that in a second. He's going to now be able to transmute that. He gets a Fierce Empath, and we absolutely know the first thing he's going for is going to be the Crusher. This is the bomb card, and there's a lot of games where it comes down to who can get it first or who can keep it on the table the longest as really the deciding factor. So now I'm in kind of panic mode. I know it's going to come out, and I really want to be able to play as many permanents as possible. I do cast the Firebolt to get rid of the persisted Ophi. I'm playing lands. I am going to hard cast out the Ninja, just again so that I have something to sacrifice later on. You want to be able to at least stall for time. It's a little less powerful than it is in 60 card format because you have so many lands and stuff like that to sacrifice to the Annihilator and still be okay. But you still want to make sure you get as many permanents as possible on the table. So finally, here it comes. The Crusher is going to come down. Bird is still pegging me for one. Don't have an answer to the Crusher. What I am going to be able to do, though, is play the Elder. This is the closest thing I have to card draw at this point in time. So I'm going to crack it for 2. The land fetch is not really important. The lands will, give me an opportunity to sacrifice something to the Crusher. But, I really just wanted the card draw off that guy so that I can try and find some kind of answer for this Crusher. Also, I have the ability now to recur the, I have 3 cards here that recur. The Cadaver Imp, the Pilfers, and the Grim Harvest will work fantastic as a loop with the Elder. I can sack myself. So, we're going to get that back. Won't be able to play it this turn, but next turn it will be able to come in. We also have the Serrated Arrows, and this kind of works well. If you're smart, you can time it. You can sacrifice an empty Serrated Arrows. If you use that last counter, you see here it says at the beginning of your upkeep, if there's no counters, sacrifice it. So if you use that last counter on Serrated Arrows on your opponent's turn, before his attack phase, when he attacks with the Crusher, you can just sacrifice the arrows that are going to be sacrificed anyways, and it basically turns his Annihilator into Annihilator 1 for 1 turn. Now I am going to sacrifice the Imp as part of that attack, because I do have this recursion going on, and if I recur a recursion card and continually can basically cycle recurring cards, it kind of makes the Annihilator a little less powerful. So the Skyreach Manta comes out, which is going to be definitely hard to deal with, but I do have options in my Vigilante. But I draw into Resounding Thunder. I'm still looking for an answer to the Crusher, and this isn't quite it because it only does 6 damage. But I am going to at least be able to cycle it to do enough damage to kill off the Manta here. And hopefully draw into an answer for the Crusher. Which we do not, but the Wandering Stream is going to at least give me an extra 5 life at this point in time. Which does not hurt. It puts me back up to 21. So, attacks through. Going to sacrifice off lands. Again, I searched out some early ones just for that. I'm going to trade my Oracle to prevent the 8 damage. Now I finally get an answer. Now, Resounding Silence is a great card. It allows me to exile an attacking creature, but there's 2 things worth noting here. The first off is that it's exiling an attacking creature, and the Annihilator ability triggers upon attacking, so I am going to have to sacrifice 2 permanents even though I do have an answer to the Crusher. The second thing I want to note is that you absolutely want to be able to cycle this card. My opponent is not running counter spells, but if my opponent was running counters in control, he is not going to be able to stop you when you cycle it, but he will be able to stop it if it is hard cast. So, that's just all being said without even considering the fact that you're drawing an extra card, which is very important as well. So going to sacrifice it himself using the capsule so that he can use some of his Grave Recursion. He still has that Recover in hand. The Silence would have exiled the creature, but basically, again, it is stalling for time and giving me an opportunity to find another answer like I did here in Hideous End. Now, he was very smart. He waited to attack first before making any kind of plays during his turn, so he has all his mana available. He is going to be able to cast Recover and replay Crusher in the same turn. I sacrifice off lands, and I also get rid of my Elder in order to, again, thinning out lands and giving myself permanents to sacrifice to the Crusher. I'm sure you're all pretty tired of me saying Crusher at this point in time, but it is just so dominant, and it absolutely was troublesome for me to deal with here. Finally get a decent answer here in the Hideous End. Things are going to go pretty well. For me at this point in time, I do cast Brainstorm, and I'm able to put lands on top of my deck that I do not want, and then I can shuffle my library using the zombie in order to, kind of shuffle away those cards that I did not want. Hideous End, killing off the Crusher, doing some damage to my opponent. Searching out another land. It's really important to know your mana curve. I know that I'm very light on mountains, so you'll see that I'm willing to sacrifice those first. I know other colors are more important to me, like black, green, and blue. So, I'm definitely going to be aware of that as I search for lands, and you should be aware of this too, searching and sacrificing for lands as well. It's always very important in Prismatic to keep a good, solid basis and knowledge of where your mana base lies. Not so much important when you come to the big money Prism decks and they're all running dual lands and stuff like that. But it's definitely worth keeping in line. So he does top into his wall, or maybe he had the wall, but he's going to be able to use it to get Recover back and use Recover to once again. I had assumed get back the Crusher. He actually uses it to get back Drift of Phantasms, which he is going to use. And another interesting move, he uses it, and this is, I guess, a good play because it's going to get him Reaping the Grave, which allows him to recur multiple creatures from his graveyard. And more importantly, it's thinning out his deck, which is absolutely important in this format. So plays out a Ranger, fetch up a little land. Now I know that I am going to have to find an answer for the Crusher. Get a little bit of time because of Summoning Sickness to find that answer, but I know it's coming back. It's just a matter of when. So get into deep analysis, can draw some cards, and I find my answer with Snuff Out. I could also use Oblivion Ring, but I decided that I wanted to cast that instead and try and thin out some of his creature base here. The Oracle does hit into a Plains. And again, thinning things out, I use the arrows to get rid of the Elder when he doesn't have the mana available to him to draw cards off it. Now we have kind of an interesting play here. I use the Oblivion Ring, and you're kind of in a conundrum when you use the Oblivion Ring, because enchantments are pretty weak, they're pretty vulnerable, and when that ring goes, whatever he had is coming back. So, you've given him a pretty good opportunity. He's got all of his creatures are enters the battlefield effects, and they really should be as well in your decks. But, removing something like Anarchist is going to give him a lot of options when it comes back. So, using Oblivion Ring, I decided to get rid of Borderland Ranger. They're both 2/2 creatures, but if the Borderland Ranger comes back, I'm not as worried about it. He's already got a lot of land. Getting him one more is not going to lose this game for me. So I use, you also saw I use the Imp. I am going to hopefully be able to start doing some damage through the air. But my opponent is going to kind of play a whole bunch of spells here to rack up that storm count. Kills off one of my creatures, the Ninja, in order to get rid of the recovery of my Grim Harvest. Playing a whole bunch of stuff here, killing off more creatures. He had a whole bunch of kill spells in his hand, apparently, and gets rid of a land. Yes, land destruction. Gotta love it. Storms off Reaping the Graves actually pretty well. It gets about, I think it was 6 Reaping the Graves off here, which is going to, of course, include the Crusher, amongst other things. But I have some answers here in Snuff Out is going to, get rid of that right away. I am going to recur more cards. I use this to get back the Elder. Again, not so much for the land fetch, although, he did get rid of the mountain, but I do have the Evolving Wilds to get it back. But, drawing cards is great, thinning out lands is great, having one card that does both is just fantastic, so, I'm more than happy to pay that 5 mana to do so. Also get into the Izzet Chronarch, which is going to be fantastic. I know I have the ability to get back some card draw that I had before, after kind of emptying my hand out here, because I will use Snuff Out right away to get off this Crusher. Kind of a great thing here, he replays his Manta as well. So it's going to cost me 4 life to play Snuff Out for free, but at the same time I have Solemn Offering, which I am going to use to get rid of the Manta, and get that 4 life back. So it cost me no life, it cost me 3 mana, and I was able to kill 2 of his bomb creatures. Definitely puts me at a good advantage, but he's clearly running a lot of grave tricks. So going to play the Chronarch. I'm going to get back Train of Thought because it is the only draw spell in my graveyard, and I am again going to be able to replicate it twice to draw 3 cards. Definitely a very, very expensive 3-card spell. I mean, you're paying 6 mana to draw 3 cards. Definitely overcosted, but for Pauper, sometimes you gotta capitalize on things like that. You see there, I attacked. It's very rare you get an instance where it's you're in at least a strategic or favorable way to attack. So I did attack with my Pilfers. It is something that I can recur, and will recur other things. But I attacked there thinking that if he blocks with the wall, I have 1 counter on arrows to get rid of. If he chump blocks with little guys, I can again, if it's mage and that, I can kill him. There's just options for combat tricks. He decided to block with the Anarchist and the Wayfinder. I had the opportunity to kill the Anarchist, but again, I really don't want him to get back spells like Recover, or more importantly, the Storm recursion. So I let the Anarchist live while killing off the Wayfinder. Ophi's come down again, and he's going to cast now a Cultbrand, who's going to kill off my Oracle. Which, it's whatever at this point in time. I am going to be able to use Icarslick, and this is a great card. I love this, that it has the Cycling Madness ability. So I'm going to be able to pay 6 to cycle it and basically kill off the Cinder. And it's a very heavy costed kill spell, but it's going to absolutely be worth it. And you're in a game like this where it's just, you've got so much mana that cycling and paying that much for something like that is not really it's not really a drawback for you. It's definitely, one of the fun things I love about Prismatic is that you can play these spells that are, usually would not be run because they're so overcosted in other formats. But so I cycle a Renewed Faith, get an Executioner's Capsule. Going to be able to use that to kill off some creatures. Do get a Doomblade as well. You see here I am cycling my Icarslick to get rid of the Cultbrand. Getting rid of the Ophi is not really an important thing since it has the Persist. It is going to just come back on me. There's going to need to be a better way for me to deal with it is the bottom line. Now, interesting thing, I drew the Auramancer here. Hopefully you checked out some of my talking about the deck. Having played this game, I definitely think it should have been replaced for something like Anarchist. At this point in time, I've gone through 70 cards from my deck, and I only have 2 enchantments, and only one of those has been in the graveyard. It's been removed at this point in time, but I think Auramancer is definitely an underpowered card in this deck because I do not run a lot of enchantments. So he draws some cards, passes the turn. I am going to be able to use my cycling off the Minotaur and the Capsule to kill off the wall. Draw into Sen's Enlistment, which is fantastic as well. And I finally get the answer that I needed. Like I said, the Ophis are troublesome because they have Persist, but with Jilt, I'm going to be able to bounce the Ophi, and I'm going for the win here. I see that I can use that. I can kill off the Trinket Mage, because I figure if he gets one of those cards back, Trinket Mage is the one card he's going to have less tutor options for. So I get rid of the Ophi, I kill the Trinket Mage, and I am going to use Doomblade to finally kill off the Anarchist. I unearth my Dragger, and this is going to put me in a position where I can attack through with all of my creatures. And if he decides to chump block the Dragger, it's going to be game for me because I do have the mana to actually hard cast Gleam of Resistance. Was put in there as the land cycling ability, but I could use it here to win the game if he has no answers. He's going to kind of debate over his mana for a little while. He does clearly have a couple answers to my creatures if he can figure out how to tap lands. Flashes back the Fires of Undeath and gets rid of my 2/2 off the Chronarch. Also going to be able to flash back the Strangling Soot to get rid of the Dragger. So at this point in time, there's no point in using Gleam. It's going to just do 2 additional damage, getting my opponent down to 5. It would be a waste. I'd rather hold on to it for another opportunity to win the game. Going to recast the Rioter. Hoping that he doesn't have another answer. He's just used a lot of his kill spells on the flashback. So getting that into play, I was hoping would kind of help me win. And if he did have an answer for it, I now played the Sen's Enlistment. So I'm hoping that I can make a whole army of little 1/1 tokens. And even if he chump blocks 1 of 2 every turn, it's gonna eventually slowly whittle him down to nothing. So my opponent's turn, he recasts his Ophi. and actually manages to get a cessation on my riders, which basically means he cannot attack, and then transmutes his drifter in order to find Arc Lightning, which is a fantastic card. This is a 3 damage spell, but it allows you to split the damage, so he's going to cast it and kill off both my soldier tokens and be able to do 1 damage to me as well. So now I could attack through on next turn at this point in the game state, and it's only going to do 1 damage, and I'm going to lose my Oracle, so it's not really worth it. But I do top deck into the game-winning card here. I originally look at Resounding Wave, and you cycle it to bounce 2 permanents, basically boomerang 2 permanents. And I'm thinking I can do the Ophi and the Cranium. Sorry, I always mispronounce this one. It's the Carnarium. But then I realized, wait, I can bounce that and the Cessation to be able to attack with my riders. And if he does not have an answer for this in his 2 open mana, then it's going to be game. Even if he does have an answer for it, I'm still in a pretty good spot here. My opponent's clock is down to 4 minutes. I did say these games can get a little long, especially like this one. And he's at 7 life, so I was definitely at an advantage here, but I do manage to get it through and attack through for the win. Hopefully this gives you an insight as to how these games can go. I think they're incredibly fun. Definitely check out the article in the deck, and I talk a lot more about Prismatic and what can and cannot be done within the format and whatnot.